Hello and welcome to Designer by Designer, IALD's new series of one-on-one interviews with and by lighting designers around the world. My name is Audrey and I am the Components Relation Coordinator for the IALD. We are excited to welcome you to the 16th interview in this series with Stephen Hoppe, IALD, and Hilde Sofie Olaisen, Junior Associate IALD. I would like to thank our sponsors. The Designer by Designer series is made possible through their generous support of our platinum level sponsors, Axis Lighting and Cooper Lighting, Lutron Electronics, Lumen Pulse, our gold level sponsors, and our silver level sponsors. Today's interview is being broadcast on Zoom and is being recorded and will be available later on to view on YouTube. Hilde and Stephen will be happy to answer any questions you have at the end of the interview. So if you're watching with us on Zoom, please use the Q&A option. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Stephen Hoppe and Hilde for the 16th interview of IALD's Designer by Designer.
Hello, I'm Stephen, and it's my pleasure to be speaking with Hilde this morning, or this afternoon, or this evening, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome. It's nice to see you. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Stephen. It's my pleasure to be speaking to you as well, and nice to see you too. So I'm doing quite fine. It's afternoon here in Norway, and yeah, I just rushed through the workday and ran home and managed to grab a shower before I turned up at the screen. So now I'm starting to breathe and. Yeah.
Great. Thanks for doing that. We're going to start off, as these always do, with just a few icebreakers. So I'm just going to ask you a couple kind of this or that questions. Do you prefer teamwork or solo work?
Oh, definitely teamwork. Really, yeah, I need people around me to push me forward, and also, yeah. I really get inspired by seeing how other people approach a topic and how they solve things, I think. So definitely teamwork for me.
Do you prefer cold or warm?
Oh, that's a tricky. No, I have to say warm, even though I live in freezing Norway, but really a cold person.
Yeah, maybe it's a desire for the warmth, right? Yeah. Do you prefer light or shade?
Light. Warm and light.
That's great.
Hand in hand.
Yeah, well, hopefully that gives a little insight into who you are. But why don't, for those of you who are out there that don't know Hilde, why don't we do a little bit of where you're from? You mentioned already that you're in Oslo in Norway. But why don't you give just a little bit of a, where you're from, where you grew up, and how you ended up
the whole background story.
Yeah.
So yeah, I grew up here in Oslo in Norway, and my family is from Oslo partly, and also partly from way up north in Norway. I always wanted to be a designer when growing up, I guess. So I did my studies in Italy, actually. I went over there to do product design because this was, more than 10 years back in time. And at that time, the design community and product design in particular was not so big in Norway. We have, at that time it was one school and it had 10 places, 10 student places. So in comparison, I went to Italy and they had like 500 places in there, all different design schools.
Yeah, that's quite a difference, right?
Yeah, it is. So that was really great. Both because Italy is lovely and also for the design ambient there, it was much bigger than the alternative here.
Sure.
So yeah, I did that, and I lived in Italy for 6 years. I started working more with interiors after I graduated, because I kind of always liked more working with people and space and rooms rather than the very technical product part. So, and then, when it was time to kind of settle down, I wanted to move back to Norway. I'm an only child, so it was quite important for me to return to my family here. And I wanted to do product design and interior here as well, but kind of by chance, I started working in a shop with design lighting, just to have a kind of job while I was trying to set up my product designer career.
Sure.
So that's how it started.
Yeah. Did you actually design lighting fixtures? Is that how you first got interested in lighting?
So I did this at the university. The first thing I ever designed at the university was a lamp, actually.
Oh.
And I had the prototype that I made here at home still. But yes and no. I mean, it was never the biggest part of my studies, and I think I discovered light for real when I started working in this lamp shop, and people were coming with all these questions. We were also selling technical lighting from Floss, the Italian brand.
Sure.
So people started asking all these technical questions, and that was really interesting. So I started looking into the subject, and took some courses, and a couple of a year and a half back, I finished my master's degree in lighting design.
Oh, congratulations. That's amazing.
Yeah, thanks. So I kind of, from the shop, I started working with the manufacturers and projects, and then now finally I'm at the best place to be in the lighting design environment in Norway, which is Studio Scenisk. It was kind of an office that I noticed when I started to discover lighting design, and I'm there now, so I'm super happy about that.
Oh, that's fantastic. So you had a fairly kind of organic pathway then, from product design into working with fixtures and lamps, and then that kind of evolved into more of a, maybe I can be the person that puts the lights in the space.
Yeah, exactly. And I have also have a sales background from the manufacturer jobs I did, so I'm quite also interested in how to sell the good lighting concepts, or how to actually communicate lighting and good lighting to the rest of the world, which is a challenge.
Right. I know. I think we all struggle a little bit with how do we communicate. What are the words, especially across different languages? What are the words to communicate that idea with? So it's pretty interesting that for you, it seems like it's a lot about the people. Is that like kind of something that inspires you, like creating good lighting for people to use in the space?
Yes, definitely. That's the thing that inspires me the most, I think, to good lighting and experiences. Of space, a room, but I think aesthetics and how we can really feel good because of the right aesthetics. That's kind of riddle, but also very, very inspiring. When you just get that feeling that everything clicks, and it's just you breathe out and you feel good.
Yeah, it's always good when it comes together, right? As you intended to be. Now I know that you also care quite a bit about sustainability, and the idea is that, especially in lighting, what we do has a high impact on the environment. And I know that you're the sustainability coordinator for Zenith. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and kind of what the mission that you've laid out is?
Oh yes, please. I can talk about that for hours. So stop me when
Good, okay, we're done.
when
Yeah,
it's
just
too
go.
much. No, yes, that was sustainability in lighting was also the topic of my master master degree assignment. So yeah, it's quite an interesting story because I was at the time when I went to first research sustainability. That's maybe 3 or 4 years ago now, and I was working then with the manufacturers and quite a lot in commercial lighting, and I really like urban lighting. And then it was much about tourism and how to create attractions with light, and this was the big words, in urban lighting. And I discussed this with my now leader in Sandisk, and well, I can call you mentor, Kristin. She's here in the panel, and she said, "Oh no, that's not the future. What do you think about sustainability? And how can travel and destination building be sustainable in the future?"
Mm.
And I'm so grateful for that now, because it really has changed a lot in these 3 years. The approach, travel with COVID,
Right.
and it has changed quite drastically, and also the
Yeah,
how
so
how we think about sustainability. So, but when I started out, it was really a lot about questions. Like whenever we started discussing this, I asked the question, and then more questions came back. Like, oh, but how about the impact of the fixtures? Okay, can we reduce energy consumption by changing everything to LEDs? Yes, but okay, then what about the fixtures, and what about the diodes? And the questions just came propelling. So I'm really glad that I got to research all of this thoroughly and kind of break it down into topics to approach it in a practical way. So that's what we're doing in Sandisk now, and we've kind of divided sustainable lighting into these four key pillars that we're working around. So it's about social lighting and well-being. It's about energy consumption, of course. It's about circularity and material consumption, like how to create a sustainable consumption pattern.
Yeah.
And about making light pollution the less possible. So,
right.
Yeah. Those
Yeah,
are
I think
key topics, and then within those pillars, a lot of
absolutely. Yeah, I think a lot of lighting people think of the energy consumption as the main component of that. I know I kind of focus on that quite a bit. But you're absolutely right. There is a lot more to it. And I think when we talked the other day, just introducing each other, we mentioned the circularity, and that's an idea that is interesting to me, and I think maybe some people don't know much about. So can you talk a little bit about what that means, like how the circularity of a product cycle, or what happens to the actual equipment that we put out in the space, right? I think that's what it's talking about, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the big thing that has changed now is that we have to think zero CO2, because we have a goal in the world and in the European Union to become zero CO2. So that's where most of our projects are headed, and that's what we need to do as well. And in Sandisk, we have a goal to be carbon neutral by 2030.
Sure.
That's a short time, and
Yeah, that's coming right up.
and this means that we have to start understanding the impact of the material that we put into the project today. So, and to decrease the impact as much as possible.
Yeah.
So one thing is to think about how to use less material, to use lighting in smart ways, create environments that has a bigger lighting impact but with less fixtures.
Sure.
But then if that's, I mean, the first thing is to reduce, but if that's not possible, then it's to look at how we can reuse material. So now there are some manufacturers that are, for example, working with buyback guarantees. So it makes it possible for a client to buy fixtures with a much longer warranty than in Norway. It's by law 5 years. I guess in the EU, yeah, that's high, but it's
that's great.
So little if you think that we build a building. The architects say it's built to last 100 years.
Right. Yeah. The lighting often is given a shorter lifespan. Yeah.
So, well, what's 5 years compared to that lifespan? It's nothing.
Right.
And it's really also very little when you think about how much energy goes into making the products and material. So, to elongate that lifespan is really important.
Yeah. Is your carbon neutral target both for energy consumption and for the manufacturing of the products you use?
Yeah. Ideally, I mean, lighting will consume some energy, of course, but again, it's about reducing as much as possible. And yeah, in Norway, we're fortunate to have a lot of clean energy.
Yeah.
So yeah, also looking into ways to have the project use cleaner energy.
Great.
Kind of push the client to use solar panels. Or, yeah.
How can you talk about
energy source?
Can you talk a little bit more about the buyback aspect of it? Because that's something that I'm not really familiar with. But it sounds like the manufacturers are selling the product, but they're also going to take it back at the end of its cycle.
Yeah, some companies are doing this. So yeah, I can.
Do they repurpose the fixture at that point and resell it, or is it a recycling option?
So the buyback warranty, then they take it back and repair it, and can also, I mean, change the diode. So also alter the function if necessary. So I don't know, increase the lumen package or change the power temperature, or do what is needed to make it fit the new function that it needs to have to gain a longer life.
Yeah, that's really interesting idea.
That's a really cool idea, and so much credit to the companies that have managed to do this now and earn from it. Because just today I was talking to one manufacturer, one of the big ones, not to mention names, but they're asking about like what are the most important sustainability parameters for us, and then the thing about circular materials and circular products is really very high on the list, because if you have accounted the carbon of the fixture already in the project and you have it repaired, then it's just much lower amount of carbon to get that repaired than to remake the whole fixture. So, and then the guy I was talking to said, yeah, but recycle and recycle, it doesn't earn you money. I said, no, That's the point. That's the hard part. You know, it's the way most of the industry functions today is that they earn money by selling and
Selling your pictures, yeah, of course.
selling,
Do you
selling
find,
more and selling more. So
yeah,
to really change the economic model into making gain from the circular economy, that's really good.
yeah, it seems like there's going to need to be a little bit of a shift in the way some of these manufacturers operate. But I think it's a great goal, and that's a really interesting concept that I hope people listening out there are taking heed of, because that would be a good thing for lighting designers to get ahead of, I think. Do you find that your clients, is that an easy thing for them to get on board with?
This is new.
Yeah.
But honestly, no. I mean, we tried in the past. There was one project where the wrong fixture, or I guess, they ordered the wrong fixture. I don't remember if it was the wrong color or color temperature. But I guess it was a ridiculous amount of fixtures, maybe 500. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah.
And the manufacturer would not take them back because it was difficult for them, impossible, I guess.
Yeah.
We knew that these all brand new fixtures were there in their boxes and could easily be used in another project. We tried to resell them at a very low price in other projects, but it was impossible because of the warranty.
Sure.
So that was like a really low, a tough blow to the stomach to realize that all that material, all brand new, was there, but could not be reused because the warranty belonged to one client and could not be resold to another client.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
So I guess
anything new, there's challenges, right? So
the warranty is really important, and I think now with the companies that can offer the warranty, it's going to be easier. But we are working now with implementing this in our new projects.
Yeah. So one of the other pillars you talked about was reducing, and I think again that's something I find most designers have trouble doing. We want to light a space pretty thoroughly, right? So do you find, is that changing the way your studio approaches a project, trying to use less points of light or less sources of light?
It means challenging the lighting standards, actually. So we're going to talk about this at Light Symposium in Copenhagen, if any of you have heard of it. Wrote a paper called the Minimum Lux Paradox. So it really means not to just think in terms of lux and evenness, but to think in terms of perception and to always verify the results visually, and then ideally to dim down or reduce even more after a light test or
So your strategy is to do a reduction in the actual amount of fixtures, but you're also adding control to that and dimming abilities.
Amount of fixtures. Like for me, the only way to really understand an environment and a project is to go there, to see it, and to test it. So that's Studio Scenic approach, to just test as much as possible, as early as possible, because that's how we can understand how to make the best lighting environment and also how to reduce. But it doesn't work in the Dialux calculation and That's yeah, I think that's the thing that struck me the most from compared to working with the manufacturer, and we did all these calculations and sold heaps of products.
Yeah.
When I went to see it live, it was really a lot of light sometimes.
Yeah, I know. I think calculations can sometimes be a little misleading. It's based on perfect science and math, and the real world has different factors involved, right?
Yeah, the gray environment of the calculation is not real life, fortunately.
Yeah. So this kind of brings me around to talking a little bit. As we mentioned, you're in Norway, and I think most people are familiar that you have wild swings of available daylight throughout the year. And I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, but summertime you might have as much as 18 hours a day, but wintertime as little as 6. So what kind of extra challenges does that create? Because I'm sure you also want to incorporate a lot of daylight into your designs. So is that, do you kind of have to think about the space 2 different ways, or like how do you approach that?
Yeah, it creates a lot of challenges and benefits, I think. In terms of business, well, we can say that we work mostly on the dark in the dark months of the year, because in all the summer months, people don't even realize that they need light. So we have a rush of projects in the dark months.
That's really interesting. The clients come rushing in once it starts getting dark.
Yeah, but it also does a lot about the culture here, I think. So yeah, in the winter, of course, we are so starved on light. It grows worse and worse as the days go darker and darker, and we crave light. So this also leads to overlighting. Or people wanting to just have a lot of light to be happy and to get that dose of light that we do get every day in summer, but not during winter. So yeah, we saw a lot of examples during COVID. And with measures that are just kind of rushed into, people buying, gathering money and buying as much as they can of kind of bling from China.
Yeah.
Just to have some light in the city.
Yeah.
And, I can't say I blame them, because I really, really understand they need something to focus on, events to gather around, and something that creates attention to the urban space. But it's not that's not the way to go, maybe.
Right. Yeah, that's really interesting that as it wears on throughout the winter, people are craving it more and more, because I mean, I'm sure you would agree with us that like human beings need light. It's kind of a essential part of our existence. And I know that you care a lot about, you mentioned it, kind of like the culture, and obviously you grew up in that culture, so you understand it. But do you study other culture, and do you look around the world for other ideas of what
yeah, absolutely. That's also one of the things that inspire me, and that's maybe what raised my awareness about light and how it influences our behavior in urban space and interior spaces as well. Like how the culture of light in Italy versus the culture of light in Norway, and how in Italy it's quite really populated and obviously a bit warmer as well. So they're used to using their urban spaces all year round, and they have a fantastic culture for lighting their magnificent heritage buildings, for example, which we don't really have in Norway. It's to a point, maybe more a culture of lighting streets for cars. So we drive from one house to another, and we really have this culture of meeting inside, mostly in the winter, because that's much cozier and warmer. And also we have this culture for warm lights. I suppose you've heard of the term hygge, which is a really, the typical Scandinavian aesthetic.
Coziness, right?
Coziness, to gather around together around the fireplace or with a lot of lit candles, and this warm color temperature is really important in our culture to feel that we get warmth even in the cold long winter. But in Italy, that's funny actually, because often when you go inside in Italy, then they have a really cold light.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, because they're used to creating a colder ambient inside. They need to cool down their interior environment.
Right. Yeah, it's a hot environment.
So yeah, it's quite different. Also in Norway, we go outside all the time. Whenever the weather is nice and the sun is shining, we just go straight out. And
Sure.
yeah, it's a bit the opposite, like where the sun creates too much heat. And also you have to wear a formal attire. It's a bit more formal, the work environment in Italy. So you go with your suit and your jacket and your tie, and it gets really hot outside in the sun.
30 degrees outside and the sun's beating down and you've had enough, right? I understand. I hear that a lot, talking to designers from across the globe. Color temperature seems to be the thing that is what I would associate most culturally. I think every kind of area gravitates toward a certain color temperature. I've heard, especially in Asian countries where lighting was introduced later and it was more fluorescent, a cooler color temperature is sometimes more desired. So it's really interesting that you picked up on that.
Yeah. Well, and also color, I think. Like if you've been traveling in Asia and India, for example, there's so much color everywhere.
Sure. Yeah. Like actually, you mean like red, green, blue, like rainbow colored lighting, right?
Yeah, pink and purple, and it just fits perfectly with their culture because it's vivid and live and eclectic. And I guess the Scandinavian culture is a bit more conservative and pragmatic.
Warm candle bar, right?
Reserved also.
So, you mentioned India. Do you travel a lot? Like, you try to get around the globe and see inspiration?
Yeah, I used to travel a lot when I was younger, in my study days. I traveled a lot. So I've lived in Italy and Belgium and France, well, and Norway, obviously. And I also did a trip around the world just after I finished my studies. So I went to visit Asia and Australia, New Zealand. So yeah.
It sounds like you bring some of those experiences back to your design and your ideas about light, then, right?
Yes, I try to. I can't think of an example concrete now, but I think for me it's I'm quite analytical, I think, to the way I approach a project and light, and it's more this understanding of how people relate to their environment and to light differently in different type of contexts. So yeah, it's from a big perspective, if you look at it globally, and then you have a lot of these micro perspectives also within Norway and the different parts of the country here. So it's already quite different just from the far north in Norway.
Sure.
So it's such a long country, and we have northern lights and much darker and longer winters, and this really long blue hour, which is fantastic. So I think that also it makes an impact.
Yeah, that's a good point. That your home country kind of spans across the Arctic Circle, so you have some areas that get really dark, and some more like you, which have at least a more balanced daylight available. But because of that, do you see a lot of desire for dark sky? Like, is that an important characteristic, or is that more like a sometimes of the year that's more important?
It's starting to show itself now. Yeah, we are quite, I guess, fortunate in Norway because it's a quite widespread country and very few people. It's only 5 million inhabitants in Norway.
Okay.
So the extent of light pollution is not that big yet. And there are still, a lot of mountains and natural spaces where the stars can be seen. We also have this culture for having a cabin, kind of extra house. So we go a lot into nature in Norway. But yeah, it has become more evident with now research on light pollution and organizations working against it. Yes, we see also cities, communities in the north that are thinking about this, the dark sky as an advantage and something that makes them unique and special. There's kind of always been the Northern Lights that has been interesting, and people are coming to Norway to see them.
Yes, trying to preserve that natural environment in a way, right?
Yeah.
Make sure that you're not destroying a tourism sector or really, I mean, culture again. It's, you don't want to eradicate that. Speaking for myself, I live in one of the brightest spots in the world. Between Boston and Washington, kind of northeast United States border, and you do notice that the sky is not here. I travel a lot to nature and try to be out in it as much as possible, and it's always a stark contrast. So it's nice to hear that Norway is not consumed by that yet. That you still have a lot of.
But from government perspective, it's always been about safety. Yeah. The discussion about how much light or not, it's always been about safety. But now we see the public authorities is also working on projects to research safety and brightness and what is the actual connection. So that's extremely positive, I think. It's a topic that is being looked more into.
Yeah, and that all goes back to the sustainability. You mentioned that light pollution is one of those aspects, and I agree completely. I think as designers, we need to be careful about that. So, no, I do want to talk a little bit more just about daylight and how you use it in your designs. Do you see daylight like a higher reliance on that as more what we should be thinking about in the future? Like, do we need to start influencing the architecture of buildings more as lighting designer?
Yes, I would love to. I would love to. We don't have a lot of lighting designers that work like that in Norway. Actually, I see that it's in Europe, in Germany and Great Britain and so on, more lighting designers that gets to do follow the whole project from the construction and working with glazing and daylight openings. I think it's super, super important. When I was doing my master's and researching sustainability, that was like the big topic and the most important way to approach a project. So I definitely think it's important and something to work on in terms of approaching clients and
Yeah, absolutely. I know.
Being assigned this job.
Yeah, in my experience, it's more often you're kind of given the building, and here's you can kind of influence the control of daylight, but not much about how it actually enters the space. So it's
Usually,
interesting to hear you deal with the same kind of challenges.
we get to do a calculation, and if it meets the demands, the minimum demands, then it's good. We're off the project.
But so you mean like if it meets minimum kind of government standards, right?
Yeah. So, but some project has a more sophisticated approach, of course. So, yeah. I hope all projects will be more sophisticated.
Right, that is the goal. I just want to remind anybody that's watching live that we're very fortunate to have Hilde with us today. And if you have any questions, if you'd like to answer, as we're getting later on in the interview here, feel free to just enter them into the Q&A on the screen, and I'll make sure those get answered. We talked about you like to travel, and you studied abroad for a bit. Anything else you want to say about what inspires you as a lighting designer, or just as a creative person?
Yeah. So, what inspires me really are the people and offices, I guess, that dares to set new standards, that dares to try to do impossible things, and then when they try it, then they do it. So that's quite abstract, but I was thinking about, for example, Studio Rosegarde. I don't know if you've heard about them, but they're a Dutch light, artist studio actually, and they have done a lot of amazing projects that concern sustainability and light and darkness. And what they've done, some of the projects they've done to turn space trash into fireworks.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's just like the wildest idea I've ever heard, and they made it happen. And they also made a tower that turned carbon. It extracted the carbon from there and made it into diamond rings that they could sell. So that's really inspiring, I think, and cool. And I can also mention Kristin, my head of office, my leader and my mentor, because she is sometimes, there are norms and rules in the country about how things are done, especially in the building industry, and especially in the electrical industry. It's quite an old industry with a lot of older guys, not all negative, but sometimes it's hard to turn around the way they think and work. And Kristin really pushes and pushes and pushes to have them understand new ways of thinking, lighting designer ways of thinking, and it works. So for me as a younger salesperson and wanting to get those messages across, it's really, really inspiring to see that it can be done, but it takes a lot of work. But it's worth the effort. So like I can say one project that we did last year. We had city. We did a master plan for a city, and they have all these historical fixtures that they wanted to switch into regular street lights. Mm-hmm. And we made a design of a redesigned light source that could fit the historical fitting and provide the sufficient lighting for the streets, but also with a really nice glow. And now that city, they are, instead of changing everything into just regular street lighting. They are keeping all the historical fittings and with this beautiful light source. And it's expensive and it has been a long process, but the result was that they did that. So yeah, that I mean, when I realized that they were going to do that, I was really, really happy because I felt like, okay, all that work, it really makes a difference.
Absolutely.
And the environment.
Yeah, it's so. Do you are kind of like the urban planning, the cityscapes? Is that the work you like doing the most?
Yes, yeah. At this point of my career, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, things always kind of move between what you're working on.
To change, but yeah, it's so dynamic and so interesting, really. Also because of this switch a lot of cities are doing now from traditional light sources to LEDs. It's really an important point in history, it feels like.
Yeah. Now, would you say in Norway or Europe, as a larger kind of view, has it mostly switched to LED at this point?
A lot of cities have, but a lot also have not.
Yeah, because I think it's great for all the new stuff we do, trying to reduce our carbon use and our energy use and everything. But it seems like updating the existing that's out there is also going to be a huge component in trying to create a sustainable future. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, absolutely. Now also energy prices has gone up in Norway. So that's going to be a game changer, I think. And good probably for reducing energy consumption and consumption in general.
Right.
Even though it's the tough way to change.
Absolutely.
Force change.
Yeah, change never comes easy, right? Especially on the kind of scale that we deal with, with the built environment. I think it's an extra challenge on top of everything else we're trying to accomplish. Again, I'll just remind everybody, if you have any questions for us, feel free to put them in the Q&A. I mean, what a treat to have you with us today and be able to talk about all this. I think, your ideas about sustainability and the, I would say, aggressive targets that your studio has set is a great example for everyone. And I hope everybody watching today learned a little bit about what we could do or what kind of targets we could achieve, if we're willing to. So it's great to hear that you're taking
just encourage everyone to just go for it regarding sustainability, because we're having just positive feedbacks, and even like we're starting to send out really, really hard and tough questions to the manufacturer, but they're all being really positive and saying, oh, this is so good that you're focusing on this, and we know this will be important. We appreciate that you ask us. So just go for it. And we can make it happen. And if anyone wants to discuss this with me, then I'm really happy to contribute with anything I can.
Great. All right. Well, it doesn't look like we had anybody on with questions. We were kind of late notice publishing that we'd be doing this today. So we hope that a lot of you are checking this out on the recordings and you're able to join us, when you were available to. But again, thank you so much. This was a great conversation. And I think this whole idea of designer by designer is fantastic. And I hope that you get an opportunity to talk to somebody else, because it's kind of fun being on both sides of this.
Yeah, I hope I get to do your part.
Yes. It's a little bit more relaxing on this side.
Well, I didn't feel that grilled.
You did a great job. Thank you so much.
It was really nice talking to you. Thank you too. Good questions.
All right, thanks guys. Thanks so much for great stories, great conversation. Definitely for the Go Green, anything energy friendly is the way to go. I'm with you. Well, yeah, thanks everybody for attending 2022 Designer series. This is the last episode for the year. So we hope you enjoyed it and all the others this past year. You can always watch any of the Designer by Designer interviews and all of the IALD's video content on the IALD YouTube channel. Make sure to subscribe. Thanks again to our sponsors and today's audience for watching. To be continued for next year. Thanks, everyone.